There is a particular kind of loneliness that has no name. It is not the loneliness of being physically alone in a room. It is not the loneliness of losing someone you love. It is something quieter and in many ways more disorienting. It is the loneliness of standing in a crowd, watching something unfold, a tension beneath someone's smile, a pattern in the chaos, a truth hiding inside a lie, and realizing that no one else around you seems to notice, not even a little, and so you go quiet. You swallow what you saw. You wonder, not for the first time and certainly not for the last, whether something is wrong with you. But what if nothing is wrong with you? What if the very thing that makes you feel most alien is actually the thing that makes you most awake? Some people move through life like everyone else, reacting to what is obvious, taking the surface at face value, accepting the first explanation offered. And then there are others who cannot help but look deeper, who notice the tremor in someone's voice when they say, "I'm fine," who see the architectural flaw in an argument before anyone else has finished making it, who sense the shift in a room's energy before a single word of conflict has been spoken. These people are not paranoid, they are not overanalyzing, they are not making things up, they are simply more awake. And that wakefulness, beautiful as it sounds, comes with a price that almost nobody talks about. Think about what it means to truly see. Not just to look, anyone can look, but to see, to process not just what is in front of you, but what is beneath it, what caused it, what it means, what it will become. The human brain is constantly filtering. Every second, your senses are bombarded with approximately 11 million bits of information. And yet, your conscious mind processes only about 50 of them. The rest is discarded, edited out, because the brain has decided it is not important enough. This filtration system is a gift. It keeps most people sane. It keeps the world manageable. But some brains, some remarkable, exhausting, quietly extraordinary brains, do not filter the same way. In psychology, this is studied under a concept called sensory processing sensitivity, a term first formally explored by researchers Elaine Aron and Arthur Aron in 1997. Their work revealed that a significant portion of the population, roughly 15 to 20%, possess a nervous system that processes the world more deeply. Not differently in a broken sense, differently in a structural, neurological, deeply human sense. These individuals don't just receive information. They marinate in it. They turn it over. They hold it up to different lights. They connect it to things they noticed 3 weeks ago, and something their mother once said, and a feeling they couldn't name but never forgot. This is not a disorder. This is not anxiety masquerading as perception. This is a legitimate variation in how a human nervous system engages with reality. But here is where it becomes painful, because the world was not built for the person who sees too much. The world rewards speed. It rewards decisiveness. It rewards the ability to look at something once, form a quick conclusion, and move on. The person who pauses, who says, "Wait, something feels off here," who needs a moment to process before reacting, who notices 17 things in a conversation when most people notice 3, that person is often misread. They are called oversensitive, overcomplicated, difficult, intense, and after being called those things enough times, they begin to believe it. This is the wound that doesn't bleed visibly. Not a single dramatic trauma, but what psychologists sometimes refer to as micro-trauma, the slow accumulation of small moments where your perception was dismissed, your instincts were laughed at, your depth was treated as a flaw. Every time you said, "I just feel like something is wrong," and someone responded with, "You're overthinking it." Every time you picked up on a lie and were made to feel like you were being paranoid, every time you saw through a situation and were told you were projecting. The message, repeated quietly across years, is devastating in its simplicity. Do not trust what you see. And so many deeply perceptive people learn to go underground with their awareness. They see everything, and they say nothing. They become, as one psychologist beautifully described it, secret observers acutely conscious of the world around them, while keeping their consciousness carefully hidden from that same world. They develop a split existence, the version of themselves that participates in conversations and laughs at the right moments and says, "Yeah, you're probably right," and the version that lives beneath that, cataloging, connecting, quietly knowing. This split is exhausting in ways that are almost impossible to articulate to someone who doesn't share it. Now consider where this depth comes from, because it does not emerge randomly. Yes, there is a neurological foundation. The research of Bianca Acevedo and colleagues, published in 2014, used fMRI imaging to confirm that highly sensitive brains show significantly greater activation in regions associated with awareness, empathy, and integration of complex information. The brain of a deeply perceptive person is, quite literally, working harder, processing more, feeling more of the texture of the world, but neuroscience alone does not tell the whole story. Because perception is also shaped by experience, and here is where we need to talk about something that rarely gets connected to this trait, but absolutely should. Many of the most perceptive people you will ever meet grew up in environments where perception was not just a gift, but a necessity. Think about a child raised in a home where a parent's mood was unpredictable, where love was sometimes warm and sometimes withholding, and the difference between those two states could shift in an instant. What does that child learn to do? They learn to read the room. They learn to watch for micro signals, the tension in a jaw, the extra quiet before a storm, the forced brightness in a voice that means danger is coming. They become extraordinarily attuned to their environment because their emotional and sometimes physical safety depended on it. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, but that word carries clinical weight that obscures something important. Beneath the clinical term is a child who loved someone whose moods they could not predict, and who learned brilliantly, adaptively, courageously to become a sensor, an antenna, a reader of invisible frequencies, and then that child grows up. The danger is no longer present. The unpredictable parent is no longer in the room, but the nervous system does not know that. The nervous system was wired for a world that required this level of alertness, and it continues doing what it was trained to do. Now they walk into offices and immediately sense who is in conflict with whom. They meet someone new and within minutes have a felt sense of whether that person is trustworthy. They sit in meetings and hear not just what is being said, but what is being carefully avoided. They notice things constantly, involuntarily, and it is both their greatest strength and the source of a particular kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep entirely cures. But this is only one piece of the picture, because not every perceptive person carries a wound. Some simply arrived this way, wired from birth to receive the world at a higher resolution. And for them, the challenge is different. It is not about a nervous system in recovery. It is about existing in a world calibrated for a different frequency than the one you naturally broadcast. There is a concept in psychology called latent inhibition, the brain's ability to screen out stimuli it has previously determined to be irrelevant. Most people have high latent inhibition. They see a coffee cup. Their brain says, "I've seen this before, nothing new here," and moves on. But in certain individuals, particularly those with high creative and intellectual capacity, latent inhibition is lower, meaning nothing gets fully filtered out. The coffee cup is still just a coffee cup, yes, but so is every expression that crossed someone's face in the last 10 minutes. Every inconsistency in what they said versus how they said it. Every pattern that most minds would have quietly archived and forgotten. Carson, Peterson, and Higgins, in a 2003 study, found that this decreased latent inhibition, this inability to fully tune out the world, was significantly associated with higher creative achievement in high-functioning individuals. In other words, the people who cannot stop noticing things are often the same people who eventually produce something extraordinary with what they've noticed. But that finding comes wrapped in a quiet and important caveat. The same researchers noted that decreased latent inhibition, without the cognitive capacity to organize and make sense of the flood of incoming information, can be overwhelming to the point of dysfunction. Seeing everything is not inherently a gift. It only becomes a gift when paired with the capacity to metabolize what you see. And that, the metabolization, is something nobody teaches. No one tells the perceptive child what to do with the awareness that their parent is in pain behind their laughter. No one teaches the sensitive teenager how to carry the knowledge that their friend group is quietly falling apart 3 weeks before anyone else notices. No one hands the perceptive adult a manual for how to live gracefully inside a mind that never fully rests, that is always processing. And so they carry it alone. They carry the weight of what they see. They carry the loneliness of knowing. They carry the particular grief that comes from being unable to unknow something once you've known it, from seeing a truth that others haven't arrived at yet, and having no way to share it without sounding alarming or arrogant or strange. There is a metaphor for this that I find unbearably accurate. Imagine a radio tower built taller than all the surrounding structures, designed to receive signals from vast distances. It catches frequencies that other towers miss. It picks up transmissions from far away, from deep below, from directions that others aren't even pointed toward. And this is valuable. This is remarkable, even. But the tower was not built with an off switch. And in the silence of midnight, when all the other towers have gone quiet, this one is still receiving, still humming, still lit up with signals from places most people cannot even imagine exist. That is what it is to be someone who sees what others don't. And you have lived inside that tower, perhaps your whole life, wondering why you can't simply be quieter, why you can't look at something and just take it at face value, why your mind insists on going deeper when deeper is exhausting and lonely and sometimes unbearable. The answer, the real answer, is not something most people have ever offered you, but it begins with understanding something fundamental about the nature of perception itself. Something that reframes not just what you are, but why. Perception is not passive. This is the thing that changes everything once you truly understand it. Most people treat perception as something that simply happens. You open your eyes, the world enters, you respond. But for the person who sees deeply, perception is an active, relentless, full-body experience. It is not just the eyes. It is the gut that tightens when something is off. It is the chest that heavies when someone is performing happiness they don't feel. It is the part of you that knows before you know that you know. And here is the shift, the reframe that nobody handed you when you needed it most. That depth is not your dysfunction. It is your design. The sensitivity that made you feel too much in rooms that demanded too little. That was not weakness wearing the costume of intensity. That was intelligence operating at a frequency the room wasn't tuned to receive. The pattern recognition that kept you up at night, assembling connections like constellations from scattered stars, that was not obsession. That was a mind doing exactly what profound minds have always done, refusing to accept the surface as the whole story. History is quietly full of people like you, the ones who saw the flaw in the accepted truth before anyone else dared question it. The ones who felt the shift in a culture before it had a name. The ones who loved people so perceptively that they became mirrors, reflecting back what others could not yet see in themselves. These people were rarely celebrated in the moment, but they were never, ever irrelevant. You are not broken. You are simply early, and the healing, real healing, does not come from learning to see less. It comes from learning to carry what you see with gentleness instead of burden. From finding even one or two people worthy of the world your perception reveals. From finally, quietly, giving yourself permission to trust the radio tower. If this resonated somewhere beneath your surface, that place most people never reach, then you already know you are not alone in this. There are others receiving the same frequencies, searching for the same stillness. Stay, there is more here for you.